Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video I'm going to look at the cost-benefit analysis of the employer and employee relationship. So I'm going to try to look at both sides and show what benefits they get and at what cost. Okay, so there's pros and cons. I'm going to show you that. So I created a little diagram. Hopefully this works. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm sort of scared. Okay, so let's get in here. Hopefully this is working. Where I sort of broke it down. So here's the employee, and the business owner. And when they get together, there's pros and there's cons. Pros, cons, right? And so what you got to think about is whenever you do any kind of business relationship, in the case of employee versus employer, it's always the employee is trying to get the most value and the employer is trying to get the most value. So they're both competing to get the most value. And they sort of come to an agreement between the two to see, where they both feel that they're getting the most value for whatever it is that they're supplying. So in the case of an employee, well, they are supplying the business owner, and I'll just write that in here. They're supplying the business owner with services. Okay, so they get services from the employee. So that's the first thing that they get. And that's the pro, that they're getting these services from the employee. And the employee, what they get is what's called an opportunity. And the opportunity is really the chance to work for somebody else where they can sell their labor for some amount of money. And that's an opportunity. So it's a benefit for that employee, because what they're getting is, if that employer never existed, they wouldn't have that opportunity. So one of the big problems in our society is there's just not enough opportunities. So one of the things you want to do is create opportunities. If you want to help people get out of poverty, what you want to do is create as many opportunities for people to be able to get employment. So one of the things we need in our society is more business owners, more employers. And there's lots of benefits that come out of that. So first thing that the employee gets is opportunity. Because if there's no opportunity, they can't actually sell their labor. Your labor is only as valuable as the ability to sell it. If you don't have any ability to sell your labor is really worthless. So opportunity is actually very important. Okay, so that's what the business owner gets. That's what the employee gets. Next thing that they get is not only they get an opportunity, but they get what's called training. And what I mean by training is, like, for example, even if I'm an expert, whatever field it is, going into a company, you get training in terms of just the experience of doing the work again and doing it maybe on more of a mass thing. Even if it's a very simple job, like a repetitive job, the training that you get using the machines, doing the repetitive task, even if it's boring and repetitive task, you get better at it. There's training that occurs. So that training has value. And that's because what happens is, like, you can say, well, I'm very well trained. I've done this job for 5 years. And you can go to another job very easily and say, well, I have 5 years experience. And they'll value that compared to if you say, well, I have 0 experience. So that training has real value. So this is the pros for the employee. Now that training actually is a con for the business employer, because they often have to basically provide an employee that training, that experience, and it's sometimes at a cost where that employee is not really as valuable as they should be, because they're just not trained. They just don't have the experience. So that training comes at a cost to the employer. So you got to kind of see that that's the overall negative thing here. for the business owner. That's a con. That's a con. And actually, I should mention that one other thing is that opportunity that the employers create for the employees, that actually comes at a cost too, because they have not only what an opportunity really looks like for a business owner side is they have to create like an office, they have to create like maybe machinery, they might have to create infrastructure, and that opportunity comes at a huge cost where the business has to invest a fair amount of money just to create that opportunity. So that comes at a cost. So we might as well put that in here. So I'm going to put that as opportunity cost. I don't know what to call it, but we'll just call it opportunity cost. So that's really how much money does it cost to create that opportunity. And that might even put the business owner into debt. Usually it does put the business owner into debt because they have to open up a storefront or whatever it is, and they have to create that opportunity. And it can be very expensive. And they usually have like, loans, and that's, money that they have to sort of account for. So these are some of the cons for the business owner. So far, now, but what are the cons for the employee? I might as well be fair, give a few cons for the employee. Well, one of the cons for employees is that they're selling their time. They're giving up time. And that's a real thing. You're giving up your time. You could be doing other things. You could be, swimming or playing with your kids or, doing stuff that you prefer to do than working in some factory or some office or whatever. So you're giving up your time, okay? Really, you're selling that time. That's one thing people don't really get. You're selling your life away when you work for another business. And that's true. It is a fact of the thing. You are selling your time in order to get money, which you can use to better the other time that you have. So it is one of those things where you're selling your time, and it's just part of it. So time is being sold. Okay, so that's one of the cons, that you're losing out on your life or whatever because time is being sold. Now, when the business owner, okay, we'll see. Let me think of some more. Whoops, zoom out a bit. Let's think about some other cons that the employee has. Well, the employee is generally getting underpaid for the work that they do. And what I mean by that is their perception of that labor that they're providing is worth more than what they're actually getting at the end of the day. So, for example, an employee, they maybe it costs them like $10 to make something, and later on that employer sells it for 20. So the employee is thinking, well, wait. I worked it was $10 for me to do this. I know there was material costs and all this other stuff, but that's maybe only another $5. And yet the employer is making $20. So they're making an extra $5 on my time. Okay. So they're like thinking, wow, I'm not getting the full value of my labor. I'm not getting that, real value for my labor. And that's a con in my the way that the employee thinks. They're thinking, well, gee, I wish if I had just sold my labor to somebody else, or maybe I could have gotten a better price for that labor. So not getting the full value, I guess would be the way. Not getting full value. Now this is really a perceptual thing, because this is really not based on reality. Actually, like the employee doesn't get the fact that their value is today when the product is really being sold tomorrow. So what happens is, this is kind of one of those misunderstandings that happens between employers and employees. The employees will always see that they're not getting their full value because they will say, well, there's somebody making a profit off of my labor. And that is a misconception because they don't see that what's happening is they're actually getting a benefit. And I'm going to tell you what that benefit is. Money now. Now, money now, one sec here. Okay, so what happens is they're getting money now. So when you hire somebody, well, you pay them within usually 2 weeks. They do the work. There's a period where they're not getting paid until the work week is finished. But they get money relatively now, within 2 weeks usually. So what happens is so if you get money now, it has a different value than money later. And that's a con for the business owner. Money later. Okay? So what happens is the employee gets the benefit of having money today in their pocket, whereas the business owner gets that money, that the profit and all that stuff later. Okay? And it's a real gamble because that money later is uncertainty. It's like, it's the old expression, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So having money right now is really nice compared to having more money, even double the money later. Okay. So that's one thing that people don't understand, that money now is actually a very valuable thing and money later, not so good. So often the case is employers are getting money later. And that there's a lot of risk involved and they don't know if they're actually going to get that money later, because money later is not always good. Now, sometimes, and I'm going to put this as a pro, I'm going to say money later again. So it's going to be like, well, what the heck? It's on both sides here. But money, we got to qualify it a bit. More money later. So sometimes is the case, and most often, if a business is going to stay in business, they have to get more money later. Okay? That's the only way that they can stay in business, because they're making the gamble that the money that they give out now is going to mean more money in the future. So that bird in the hand thing, well, they think, well, I'm going to get those two birds later on. And that's the gamble that they're making. So they're taking that risk, but they're hoping that they're going to win on it. And it's sometimes the case, sometimes it isn't. A lot of businesses fail. That's what people don't understand. The amount of businesses that fail is pretty huge. And, I think it's like, if you're in a restaurant, just so you know how much business fails, I think it's like 50% of all restaurants will fail within their first or second year. So it's huge amount of failure. And it's because, this whole risk that they're taking, where they're paying out money now with the hopes that money will come in later, and doesn't always come. So this is a benefit. This is the loss on that one, where and understanding these things really is important. One of the biggest things is this money now for the employee, because they're really getting money now. And most people want money now. Personally, I'd be the same way. So sorry about that. I got a little bit distracted by the phone. So where were we? I was explaining about money now, money later, and I was trying to get into the ideas of what are the arguments for why somebody should work for somebody else, where the things where they would say, well, this is why I don't want to work for somebody. Why? And for the business, or what are the pros and cons of hiring people? But what I want to show is just this is the basic ones. These are, I think, all the major elements that employees and employers think about. And I kind of want to quickly say under the difference between socialism and capitalism. Now, under socialism, there is no true business owner because the employee becomes the business owner. Really, that's not really true because the true definition of socialism is the state is the business owner. So we just change this and we call it the state. But in theory, the employees are all owners of the state, but it doesn't generally work that way. You know, if you're anyone that pays taxes, you'll feel that all the time where it feels like you have very little say over how your taxes are being used, even though you vote for your politicians and all that kind of stuff. Very often you don't really feel like you have any control over the government. The government does so many dumb things that you would never want them to do. And actually, the funny thing is, it's not even that you are alone in that thought. It's often the case that majority of people feel that way, that their government doesn't really represent them, and you have to wait 4 years before you elect somebody else. And generally, you don't have much choice in terms of the people you elect. So the business owner isn't really that much different. You don't really have much say over what the business owner is or does, and as an employee. So that's actually one thing I put as a con in here, and I kind of want to get into that happens within both capitalism and in socialism. That one of the big grievances that employees have is that they don't have much say, no say in how the business is run. I mean, they can complain about certain things and they can suggest things, but often the business owner doesn't listen. And that's actually a fault of the business owner. A good business owner should actually listen to their employees, but sometimes they don't. And that's a real problem. And the same happens within socialism or capitalism. Sometimes politicians listen to us, sometimes they really don't. And that is a real grievance. And I'm very aware of that grievance. So that's an important one. And the benefit that the business owner has is the opposite of that, where the business owner can say, well, they can really run it the way that they want it to run. So they get the power to choose, or the control, I would say, control. They get to make that decision, how the business is run and what the employees should be doing. Because it's not as an employee, when you're working for a company, they're the ones telling you what your tasks are. They're the ones telling you what it is that they want you to do. And that's a control thing. And it's a very important thing for business owners, because if the employees are constantly dictating what they want to do, well, generally nothing gets done, and businesses can fail, actually, because you really want the person with the insight and that foresight to basically be the one guiding the company. So that control is very, very important for the business owner, to be able to dictate what those employees are doing. So control is very important. Now, I'm actually going to show you the positive side. And if you look at socialists, a lot of them really love the idea of the big government. They love the idea of somebody making those decisions for them. They love the idea of being protected by the government. They love all of that. And I actually see that as being something that's not just associated with socialism, but I see it as something being associated with capitalism. The reason a lot of people become employees rather than setting up their own business is they don't want to make the decisions. They don't want to have that control. They really want to have somebody take care of them. And that's actually a benefit of being an employee, that you get to be taken care of. So being taken care of. Okay? And that's a real benefit, that employees get. They don't have to worry about making those big decisions. They don't have to worry about firing other people. They don't have to worry about, is the business going to make money a year later? They don't. Their concerns are they're being taken care of. And they give up control to get that being taken care of, but they do get the benefit of being taken care of. And that's a real benefit. Now, the con of that for the business owner, and it is a real con, is that they have to make the tough decisions. So there is and I'm going to put this as a con, tough decisions. So when you are a business owner, you have to make those when you get control, you have to make those tough decisions. You have to say, well, I might have to fire these people, or I might have to hire people and not have enough money to pay for them. I might have to invest in this technology. I might have to cut costs here, or I might have to sell my product for less than what I thought it was worth. I might have to, there's like all these what ifs and, decisions that have to be made. And somebody has to really, think through and say, well, this is the best decision. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. And it's a really tough thing. And it can be devastating. You can make a decision that you think is a brilliant decision, and it just totally backfires on you. Like, let's say expand our business into Canada, like Target did. And they thought that was a brilliant decision. It should be the same market. A lot of Canadians are buying from Target through cross-border shopping. And that tough decision of expanding into Canada with Target, for example, it was a total disaster. They lost $3 billion doing it. It was like a big risk. And it was a tough decision that somebody made. And they also had to make the tough decision of pulling out of Canada because it didn't work. And those are really tough decisions where, you're taking huge risks. And I wouldn't personally want to be in that situation to make those tough decisions sometimes, like where you have to really plan out, and it can cost your company. It can put you out of business, those tough decisions. So those can be very, very traumatic in terms of the business owner. They're really tough decisions, and it can really plague you when you make a tough decision and you don't make the right one, or even if you make the right decision, because there's always consequences to those tough decisions, and it is like it's brutal. So that's a major con for business owners. So what we have here, there's probably more that I can add to this list, and I'd love for you in the comments below to give me more things that I can put on the pro side, on the con side for each of these. But we can sort of weigh them out. So we got 4 things on the pro side for the employee, 3 on the negative, so maybe a +1 for the employee. On the business owner side, we have 3 and 4 on the con side. So maybe a -1. So the employee seems to win out most of the time. They give up control and they give up their say, but they get so many other benefits. So, it's one of those things where I hope that I got all the things. You could imagine if the socialists are watching this, they're going to give me a whole bunch of cons for the employee, but you have to look at both sides of it. And I tried to be fair in terms of the way that I represented this. I try to be fair in terms of representing both sides and their benefits and their costs. But if I missed something, please feel free to comment. Please feel free to add to my list. But I think this is the best way to look at what is really happening, what is happening in that exchange between the employee selling their time and the employer buying that time. So I hope this has been beneficial. I hope this gives you a little bit more insight into how business works and in terms of how businesses make that decision about even hiring that employee. I'd even get into some of more of the cons that business owners face, because they have what's called turnover, and there's like, you train your employee, you do all this wonderful stuff to get that employee to a place where they're actually producing, and they just don't produce. They just not, and or they leave. They go to some other company that, and it's like constantly, going through that same process over again. And it can really hurt businesses where they're paying so much to just train the employees and then they leave. It can be really painful. And that's that's just part of the nature of business, that there's all these things that you have to be aware of. So please give me your feedback and try to add to my list. What do you think are the benefits of being an employee? What are the negative things about being an employee? What are the benefits of being a business owner? And what are the negative parts of being a business owner? And I'd love to hear your feedback. And thanks for watching. This has been Socially Triggered. Bye for now.